The king of daredevil comedy. In 1922, silent film actor and director Harold Lloyd was walking in downtown Los Angeles when he saw an unusual sight: a man climbing up the outside of a tall office building. A crowd was gathered, mesmerized by the spectacle. Lloyd watched nervously until the climber, a daredevil named Bill Strother, made it to safety. So here I need to decide the correct tense. Lloyd watched nervously. This is fine because we are speaking in the past tense, so I like A. Had watched is past perfect, and we will only use the past perfect when there is another action with regard to which we use it. So it's not B. Watches is the present tense, so that's not correct. And has watched is present perfect, so that's also not correct. The right answer is A. Lloyd watched nervously until the climber, a daredevil named Bill Strother, made it to safety. Having already made a few films in the vein of thrill comedy, the event inspired Lloyd to create his most daring film yet, and he invited Strother to be involved. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence: Lloyd was impressed by Strother's boldness. So, should the writer make this addition here? So we can see that he watched Strother and then he was impressed enough to invite Strother to be involved in his next film. So yes, I would like to include this because it explains why Lloyd was nervous while watching Strother. No, that's before he saw the event, so it's not A. Yes, because it makes a point that is elaborated in the next sentence. Yes, so this is the right answer. He was impressed by Strother's boldness, and so he invited Strother to be part of his next film. Now, the next question: having already made a few films, again, this is a modifier. Who had already made a few films? Lloyd. So the part after the comma should start with Lloyd. Lloyd was inspired to create his most daring film yet, right? I can't start with the event or it was Lloyd's inspiration or its inspiration. So whenever you have a modifier, begin the part after the modifier with the subject that the modifier refers to. The result was Safety Last, the most famous movie of Lloyd's career and a marvel of creative filming. In the final scene of the movie, Lloyd's character, a department store worker trying to impress his girlfriend, must climb the outside of a 12-story building. So here I am describing Lloyd's character. The main sentence is Lloyd's character must climb the outside of a 12-story building. A department store worker trying to impress his girlfriend. This is additional information. So it should come between a pair of commas or a pair of dashes. Here you have a semicolon, so that's not correct. Option B is good because a comma and a comma can be used to bookend a non-essential clause. So B is the right answer. A comma and a semicolon is not right. And a dash and no punctuation here is also incorrect. So B. Because modern day composite filming techniques such as blue screen did not yet exist, let alone computer generated special effects, Lloyd had to be creative with his stunts. He used a full scale replica of 2 floors of Los Angeles's International Savings Building and set them on the roofs of progressively taller buildings. Okay, so he used a full scale replica. So I need to use a pronoun which refers to replica. So it has to be a singular pronoun. So it can't be them, those, or these. It has to be it. He used a full scale replica of 2 floors of this building and set it on the roofs of progressively taller buildings. That is, he placed the replica on a platform atop a 2-story building, then a 7-story building, then a 13-story building. So I'm kind of explaining what he did, right? So that makes sense here as a connector. So I like A. However is a contrasting connector. So that doesn't make sense here. Furthermore is when I want to add additional information, but here I'm just explaining how he set the replica on the roofs of progressively taller buildings. So it's not C. And instead is used when I'm speaking of another option or another case. So that also is not the right answer. It's A. The hoax allowed Lloyd to climb only a few stories at a time while always perpetuating the illusion that he was climbing several stories higher. So, here I need to talk about the illusion that Lloyd created. So, from the options, I think trick is the best word because it was a trick that he played on the audience. Hoax is normally used for something that's really elaborate, something that is meant to fool people. So it could also work in a context of what Lloyd did, but I would use it for something that is much more vast, that is on a bigger scale. So I don't think A is the best. And cheat is not used as a noun, so that's not correct. And to swindle someone is to kind of cheat someone of money, so that also doesn't make sense. So B. Lloyd was not the only silent film actor to attempt such risky stunts. Rather than using fake backgrounds or projections, he insisted on a real city background. The camera angles in the climbing shots are focused very precisely, cutting out the platform and the rooftop of the lower building, but showing views of the street and other buildings in the distance. Which choice best introduces the topic of the paragraph? So I'm talking about the level of detail that Lloyd brought into his productions. So the fact that he was not the only silent film actor is not a good introduction because I'm not talking about other silent film actors. The building where Lloyd filmed much of Safety Last was at the top of a hill, making it seem especially tall. So this does not go into the level of detail either. So it's not B. For publicity, Lloyd's character in Safety Last scales the side of the store where he works. Again, this doesn't introduce what we are looking for. Lloyd was committed to making the stunt look as realistic as possible. So, this is a good answer because we describe how he used camera angles in a way that the street could be shown and other buildings could be shown in the distance. So, he was trying to make it realistic. The camera angles in the climbing shots are focused very precisely, cutting out the platform and the rooftop. So the way it's written is good because this is the independent clause. And then I'm starting the dependent clause after the comma. So I like A. I don't need commas around very precisely because that is essential. So it's not B. I definitely need a comma after precisely to indicate a break between the independent and dependent clause. And I can't have a semicolon because the part after the semicolon would not be an independent sentence. So A. For the long shots, Lloyd used footage that Strother filmed during his own climbs, adding to the illusion that the character really was clenching the side of a skyscraper. So I'm trying to say clinging to, right? Which is to say that, to hold tightly to something. And that's exactly what the scene was showing. To clench is to kind of make a ball with your fingers, like roll them into a fist, right? So that doesn't make sense. To embrace in the physical sense would mean to actually hug someone. So that doesn't make sense here. And to adhere to is used in the context of to adhere to rules, that is to follow rules. So that also doesn't make sense here. The answer is C. Lloyd, a comedian as well as a stunt performer, used the dangerous climb as an avenue for comedy. Each stop along the building presents perils for Lloyd's character: a mouse running up his leg, a net tangling around him, a disorienting camera flash, a flimsy clock face. To that end, Lloyd does not fall from the building, but he does succeed in keeping the audience both in stitches and on the edge of their seats. So here I'm saying that everything in the scene, every part, every aspect is meant to indicate danger for Lloyd's character. And yet he does not really fall from the building. It just creates that element of thrill and suspense for the audience. So to that end doesn't make sense because the previous sentence doesn't talk about an aim that he was trying to reach. Of course, is a good transition because I'm saying in the previous sentence that there were dangers everywhere for Lloyd's character, but of course he does not fall from the building, right? So that's like The expectation is that in spite of those dangers, he does not fall. And those dangers are just meant for comedic effect. So B is a good answer. Otherwise is used to present the other side of an argument. So that doesn't make sense here. And thus is similar to therefore. So that also doesn't fit. B is the best answer. Okay, let's grade this. 12. A, B, 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 D. A, B, 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 D. 17. A, B, D, A, C, B. A, B, D, A, C, B. Okay, great. So we got all correct.